Hi, I'm Brian. Welcome to Autogefuhl and welcome to the brand new GLE Coupé. Bang! Well, I'm pretty sure you can imagine the first thing that they're going to want you to feel as a customer is that this is making a very different statement from the GLE. And right from the get-go, right from the first glance at the front here, you can see that this is making a very bold statement. From the eyes at the front here, which are now standard as full LEDs, to this massive combination of traditional Mercedes styles. We have the Starburst grille, but also this very familiar horizontal bar and the massive Mercedes logo in the front. Everything here is designed to go bang and really hit you in the face. It's big, it's solid, it's bold, but it changes its styling as we come slightly higher up. Look at the sleekness of the way these lines draw up through into the bonnet to the visual of the windshield. Clearly, this is supposed to look a lot more svelte than a traditional SUV. 4 meters 93 in length or 194 inches. This is where the styling makes a very solid statement of difference. So we've got to start with the most obvious point. Let's look at these wheels. Well, they are running 19 to 22 inches. And I think in terms of making the styling work, it really is worthwhile looking at the largest possible wheels for this car. Before I get 1,000 comments saying, but they're not usually the best, I will say if you're buying the coupe, styling is clearly very important to you. And I think you have to agree, these massive wheels really feel at home within this design. Now, if this is looking a little bit different from the coupe of the last generation, that's because we have a larger length to this car now. There's more room to play around with on the chassis, but don't be fooled into thinking it's just a standard GLE again. It's 60 millimeters, and that's around about that much shorter on the wheelbase than the GLE. The reason for that change is to add to the agility in the handling and the drive of the car. 2 meters or 79 inches in width. The back of this car is now 7 millimeters, and that's approximately the width of your thumb, wider than the predecessor. And this is where we get to what I would describe as being the taste splitter. If you're going to go with a coupe SUV, you're going to have that nice looking roofline, but it is going to leave you with something of a challenge at the rear. And that's why we have this massive rear section. Now, that's not all for aesthetic purposes. The load space in the boot is larger. We'll get to look at that in just a bit. Also, the load width is slightly wider, and because of customer feedback, as you can see here, a standard problem for coupe SUVs is that they have very high entrance points. This has now dropped, and if you go with the Airmatic suspension that's available, you can drop it even further still, so it should be much easier to get that load into. Let's take a look in the back. Well, we now have 655 to 1,790 litres of load space back here, and that is 70 litres more than the predecessor. I think I'm going to cut quite a lot of slack for this car in terms of the rear design for quite what's been achieved here. Let's not forget that reduction in aerodynamic or increase in the aerodynamic coefficient. That results not only in a more fuel efficient car, but it also means that the ride noise inside is actually fantastically low, and that is a really big advantage. So I will put up with quite a bit of bulbous back in order to accept two things: one, better aerodynamic performance, and two, increased load space. Well, ordinarily at this point we're showing you inside the car, and today's no exception, but we're going to start with the back. Why? Well, my number one bugbear about the first generation of this car was the headroom in the rear. The reason being, you cannot put a coupe line on any car without compromising the space for the rear seat passenger. And the reason that it upset me so much in this car is that it's an SUV. So I have to be able to travel with rear seat passengers. Otherwise, there's literally no point in the vehicle. So I'm 5 feet 10 or 178 centimeters, but I do have a particularly large torso, so you can compare my available headspace with somebody around about 6 foot in height. And I am very happy to tell you that thanks to the new chassis, thanks to the redesign, I am very, very happy and comfortable back here indeed. Well, of the compromises that I had with the predecessor, I was always pretty happy with both the drive and the appearance and styling of the interior. Mercedes certainly know how to finish a car and make it look pretty nice, and this is no exception. Everything's a little bit more updated, as is always the case with Mercedes. The options you can have are almost limitless. So if you're looking at this and you're thinking, I'm more of a wood guy, or I think I'd prefer lighter or darker or different materials, honestly, you're going to be able to find exactly what you want within the lineup. So this is only this particular style. It suits my taste. I like the mixture of metal effect, actual metal, and nicely finished fabrics. Stitching looks good. Everything is designed for practicality. Look at those door pockets in the front. Hooray! We do gain some benefits from having the SUV styling over a standard coupe after all, and there it is. Let's have a look and see how comfortable the car is. And Thomas, I might just need to switch it off so I can stop it talking to me while I'm going about it. Then again, it might just need to keep talking to me anyway. Well, as you would expect, I have ample room here. I have more than enough headspace, and this car comes with a panoramic roof, and as you know, you always lose a little bit of room for that. I'm always a bit confused with Mercedes, how they managed to do such a fantastic job on the finishing and details 99% of the time, and then they just let themselves down a little bit with these small touches. In such a nicely finished car, it really stands out. It wouldn't stand out in any other vehicle. It's just that it's in such contrast to everything else that's happening here. So a minor niggle, could just be a pre-production thing, but I think it's worth pointing out just so you can see I'm not only a fanboy for this car in particular. Now let's have a look slightly lower down. I'm really liking this solid design here. This is really reflecting the SUV character. Everything is really nicely integrated with internal lighting. You can see a little bit of that just here. Obviously, that's fully adaptable to your personal taste. I have driven in this car in the night, and it works really nicely for creating an ambient atmosphere that suits your style and your taste. We have Andreas Seigen with us today, and he is the head of development for SUVs at Mercedes. So a lot has changed for this car.
Yeah.
Talk me through some of those changes.
Good. The biggest change, and that is maybe the first and important message, is we have our own wheelbase for the coupe. We'll have a 60 millimeters less wheelbase than the GLE. So that was the first and important issue regarding to the design, because the coupe has to be more sporty. It has to look like more, maybe something aggressive, but we want to create a beauty.
We've come to the roads in the mountains outside of Sibiu, and that's in Romania. And I would say that's very famous for two things in particular. The one is extremely beautiful roads to drive. And the second, if I'm being bluntly honest, is that they're not always in the best condition. So this offers us the opportunity to see both the sporty and agile handling of the car, but also whether it can still deliver the level of comfort that people have come to expect.
Yeah. And I hopefully you feel it, because we are driving here in a curve mode right now, very smoothly on very rough roads here, and you don't feel that the car is like moving the body and so on. And even here in the curves, you feel it, it's very stable. The body in white is very stable, and the whole body is very stable. So therefore, even we drive with 22-inch wheels. Here we have two electrical systems on board because we need the 48 voltage for the power. It's powered the EABC system. So therefore, we have, in addition to the normal 12 volt system, this 48 voltage system on board. So that needs the power, for example, here to move the body in the curve that we drive a little bit like a motorcycle, you know. It's not going in the direction like a car normally. It goes inside to the curve and stabilize the body.
And thanks to that new system, you now have available 100% of the power on each of the wheels. Is that correct?
Exactly.
That makes a significant difference to
Absolutely.
the agility in the handling.
There's no rolling bar. So this system is 4 separate wheels. So they operating absolutely no combination, no influence between right side, left side. It just stabilized by the camera view, which you see here, will scan the road, and therefore you see how the system is operating and stabilize the car when we're now turning here into the right corner. The reaction of the car in sport, and I will show you, it is like and it's still stable. You don't feel something that the body is moving. It's still stable.
And here we go. Lovely. Now, if you haven't driven one of these before, I think that description really hits the nail on the head of what wasn't ideal with the predecessor, was that it was a GLE with a less practical body shape on it. So it looked great, but it was never delivering the drive that the visuals promised. I think, as we've just seen over the past 45 seconds, this car's a little bit of a different beast.
Yeah, and you can very smooth, very easily, and feel really still very comfort. Even we are going with an SUV in this dimension. Look, I'm going this one, and I'll react this one. So this is just a very, very easy way to have. This is a 400D coupe.
Well, thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
taking the time to show us. Obviously, I'm more than a bit excited to get behind the wheel myself, but I think I might have to wait just a bit longer for that.
Exactly.
So that about does it for us and our time here in Romania. So, what did we think about the GLE Coupé? Well, there are those who think that an SUV should be an SUV and a coupe should be a coupe. And I'm not going to lie, I think I probably am one of those people. But if you're somebody who loves the coupe style and wants to know, is it realistically possible to get that and the matching performance in an SUV? Well, there I have to take my hat off to Mercedes. This car for me is an extraordinary technological achievement. It delivers far more of a coupe driving style in an SUV shell than I honestly believed was possible. Why? Well, it's so much higher and bigger than a coupe really is in order to deliver what you want from the drive. But there is so much technology happening in this car. It's extraordinary, and you really have to drive it to believe just what it's capable of achieving. Now, all of that said, it's not only the technology that's a massive leap forwards in this car. Having the insight to design this from fresh and making it a shorter platform than the GLE on which it's based is a complete revelation. This car is nothing like the GLE to drive, it's nothing like the GLE to own, but it does deliver you the comfort that you get from that model. So all of my criticisms of the predecessor are pretty much completely gone. That has been fixed in every single respect. And for that reason, it really is a remarkable achievement. Visually, well, let's be honest, the style's either going to work for you or it isn't. So when I give you my comments here, it is based on expectation of this particular model. If you're going to go with an SUV in a coupe style, I think this is probably getting close to about as good as you can make it look. It has to be big and bold in the front. It has to be svelte and sleek throughout the side, and the rear, well, I'm still not seeing exactly what you're going to do to solve that particular problem, but it does look completely unique. And I think for a lot of owners or prospective owners of this vehicle, that is going to be a huge selling point. Pricing, well, we don't have the numbers yet, but I'm pretty sure you can imagine it's going to be fairly eye-watering. And so it should be. After all, if you own one of these, you don't want to see 5 or 6 of them on the school run. You want to be the only person driving it. And the best part is, you really want to be able to say to somebody when they get into that passenger seat for the first time, I bet you think you know how this car's going to drive, don't you? Well, I bet you're going to be surprised. And that's my response to this vehicle. It's an absolute delight compared to its predecessor. I like the styling there, but for me that was a bit of a gimmick. This is a wholly credible car, and it delivers very, very special things from its drive. But hopefully we're going to get to show you a lot more of that soon when Thomas takes it out for its full review. Thank you for joining us here today. I hope you've had a good time watching, and we hope that we'll see you all again soon.